Hi, everybody. I am back with another Spider Man spoiler review comic. And I'll be covering Spider Man India. This is the first time me getting into Spider Man India. I heard about the character, but never read his comics. Uh, this is the four-issue origin story of Spider Man India. And of course, this is like a different universe altogether where India has become like the dominant culture in the world. If you've seen the teaser of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, you see like when a little brief moment where Spider-Man 2099 is attacking Miles Morales. They portal through what appears to be India, or a combination of India and New York, and you get a brief glimpse of that. This is like, from what people can tell, that's what we all gathered, that is supposed to be Spider-Man India. Given like the design and art and the theme music, the score behind it, very in the style of India. So that's where we, pulled that from, and nobody's disputed it. So yeah, now I figure like, okay, it'd be a good idea to dive into the world or universe that is Spider-Man India. And in this world, Spider-Man is this uh, Indian young man named Pivatar Park Bakar. I might be butchering a lot of names here, so I do apologize. Uh, Pivatar Prabhakar. So, uh, Pivatar. And he has an uncle named Bahim instead of Ben, and aunt Maya instead of May. And somehow, Aunt Maya seems more feeble than your typical uh, Aunt May, where we kind of, because Aunt May, many years ago, prior to the MCU, always is depicted as like a feeble old geriatric. Uh, and it seems like in this, it seems like it's almost doubled down on that, where she's pretty much like, and she's literally has a cane. And it's like, oh my god, it's like, I when the MCU started to introduce, well, it's not even the MCU. They kind of did this in Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man Andrew Garfield stuff, where it seems like I made this guy like in increments younger, to the point we got Marissa Tomei, where she's like extremely hot. And in the comics, especially in the PS4 game, it's just like, in the PS4 game, still kind of old, but not to the point where she's on death's door. She seemed like in the game, she seems like, mid 50s, getting close to 60s, where she still got color in her hair. Uh, so it's like, I, I initially I felt like, part of me was against it, because like, I may shouldn't be hot, and it's just making it hotter and hotter, because the same thing with most of the, since like Spectacular Spider-Man is guilty of this too. The TV show, you know, that Aunt May is, you know, she might be old but not elderly and still very vibrant and active. And it's like, okay, it's like, I think Spectacular Spider-Man kind of did it right. She needs to still be old, but I don't need her to be pushing death's door old, if you catch my drift. In this, uh, Peter, Pivatar, not too long, this is probably fairly the origin story from compared to Peter, because typically Peter Parker, he lost his parents when he was, so like, like a young kid, and it was like maybe like 10 or so. And then was sent to live with his aunt and uncle, and he was raised by them until like he was well like way up to the point where he's well in his high school. Here he's early in his high school, and not too long, as it appears in this, he lost his parents fairly, not too recently, but fairly recently, where he's still kind of not gotten over that. So his aunt and uncle enrolled him into this, because they talk about this village where they come from, where it's relatively poor, but I guess after the recent death, I guess the insurance or whatever they left behind for Pivotar, they was able to enroll him into a good school to try to give him a better life, almost like a scholarship kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out what's this institute? Uh, uh, Heritage International. Uh, so when he gets there, and it's you can't help when I read certain parts of this, you can't help but think of the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, where it's like these people are like these kids are just relentless bullies. By the way, I noticed how like my uh, uh, light thing, I didn't do this previously, but when it comes to the Spider-Man stuff, I can mix the colors, and not all colors, but the colors that's available. Where I got it mixed now between red and blue, I think is kind of important, at least key for all my Spider-Man related stuff, the red and blue. So, these kids are clowning him because I guess because come from this village where, the school just kind of looked down on this, I guess prestigious kind of school, where I guess kind of like the uppity, when it comes to social hierarchy, they look upon this guy like, oh, he's not one of us. And then we got the introduction of this universe's Mary Jane, or Mara Jade. Almost kind of sounds like a Mortal Kombat character. Mara Jade still got. I mean, here's the thing: when you first see her, her hair color, because Mary Jane typically has the most iconic. Well, her and Jean Grey are well known because Stanley had a thing for redheads. And then of course like Pepper Potts, the most iconic like redheads in pop culture. When you first see Mara Jade, it's almost like a brownish kind of color, but in the first introduction, in subsequent panels later, now you see a very vibrant red. It almost seems like the creator is just like almost forgotten about that. Oh, by the way, before I end up forgetting, those are the writers, because funny enough, one of the writer here is named Kang, but I only get the full name here. I am sorry, gotta look this up myself. Okay. Because this comic was published in India, which is pretty cool. Because like there's typical, dialect and things that only the people of that culture would get in certain with certain terms and terms and phrases and everything like that is you only can probably guess, or at least take like inference from the way the sentence goes. Javine Kang, uh, who did like the art and some of the art and the writing, primarily the writing, and you got also helping with the writing Suresh Sitharaman, and then also with the writing Sharad Devarajan. So I thought I can point that out really quick just to give these guys their props. So Mara Jade steps in to stop the people because he's like, dude, what the hell? He recently lost his parents and y'all clowning him right now? Like, what kind of sick bastards are you? So, she steps in and try to offer some bit of support. And, he's just stunned by this girl's beauty. And I love the way, certain art, with her hair, is the way it's drawn. It's almost like a swirly, enticing type of, kind of like when you see old cartoons when like somebody leave out like a warm pie out and like the smells wafting in the air and it's like, like finger pulling the cartoon character towards it. It almost seems like that, sometimes. I thought it kind of, at least this in how I did, depict it, because it's almost looks that way. I just love the way her hair is just swerve towards the ends. It's like very unique. It's hard. I've never seen that before. And it's kind of funny. Only last week I did like a movie spoiler review. My first movie spoiler review of 2023 is the 90s Spider-Man, 90s Aladdin, Disney Aladdin. And it's like, not the same kind of, region or background, but you understand where I'm coming from. And that's why I figured, like, I just do it back to back, but you also get an introduction to this world's Norman Osborn. Here, he's called Behajan Oberoi, or Oberoi, instead of Osborn. We also, I think, like, Bia John is some kind of title, or like I said, people of the India culture probably know what that means, but they also call, because he has an N and an O as his initials, so it's Naheem Oberoi. And so he's on the hunt because apparently in Peter's village, which I was gonna call it's Oberoi. I think Oberoi is I can fairly remember it, or just Naheem, or Nyreen. The Oberoi anyway. Is on the search for this mystical amulet, and I kind of like the depiction of this world's Norman Osborn because he has the third eye, because you typically depict it in Hindu culture, the symbol of the third eye, but it's kind of big, almost like a big teardrop almost. And I kind of like that. It's like, for some reason, I very much like this depiction of Norman Osborn. It's because if you watch my gameplay, oh, by the way, check out my spoiler review of Aladdin on my channel. Links are in the description, but youtube.com/talkativecarl, like it, share it, and definitely check out my I was another thing I was about to mention. Uh, my uh, playthrough of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, one of my favorite games I ever played in my life, especially Spider-Man related. Uh, uh, one of the worlds, which is Spider-Man Noir, has that depiction of Norman Osborn. I was thinking it's like my, of course, like the standard Norman Osborn is my favorite. But then the noir version is probably my second favorite. This is fairly close, uh, uh, as far as like Norman Osborn depictions. But uh, uh, I gotta go through them all. But I like this design as well. You even still have the iconic like cornrows or waves or whatever how they draw it. Because in the '90s cartoons, it always seems like waves to me. I don't know. Uh, but he sends his men to pillage and destroy, leave no witnesses, to find this amulet that's hidden there. Because typical Norman Osborn wants to acquire as much power as possible. And of course, he gets it, and it turns him into a, you know, a Green Goblin. It's almost uh, uh, a goblin, but also like a type of demonic creature of Hindu culture or something. Because this amulet, it housed like, because once he's released this energy, he hears voices of these different demons that were ensnared by the warriors of the Hindu culture and sealed away. Now they want to exact their revenge on humanity, but they tell him to seek out, because they show him like a vision of Pivatar, because he is going to be like the avatar of the spider. And he, while running away from some bullies, he bumps into this old man shaman type of guy who saw like, it's kind of like Aladdin, the diamond in the rough, some kind of thing like that. He's the chosen one. And he shows him to be the avatar of the spider, because Oberoi, is the avatar of these demons who is trying to use them to unleash their brethren, so that way they can like rampage through the world. So after Pivatar acquires this power, because somehow he just ends up on top of a roof when he was just in the alley. There's certain stuff that, if I have any cons, I know they try to truncate this because make it short and sweet to the point kind of stuff, which typically I love, but I don't like it when it's sacrifices certain panels that we probably need to gauge. Okay, you skipped something because you put the characters were here one way, and then all of a sudden something else happened, and it feels like there's a gap in between, and it's kind of needed. So typical, kind of origin story for Peter Parker's most of the time, he wants to capitalize off of it, or just not. Well, you don't see him try to become a wrestler or anything like that, but he just feel like I got the power, I can just do whatever I want now, and acting irresponsibly. And of course, he already had to talk with Uncle Baheen, who gives him, with great talent must come great responsibility. And I was like, it's the same thing, but you worded differently is kind of almost jarring, because with great power must come great responsibility is the most iconic line in pop culture that permeates through the zeitgeist, where you don't even have to be a comic book fan in general to know where that comes from and what it means. Uh, so when somebody kind of like, flips it, you know, turn around, reverse it, draw two, it kind of like is a little jarring. It's like, but a woman was about to get mugged by these muggers. Bahim managed to be around, tries to steps in. He gets shanked by one of these guys, and because Pivotar could have stepped in at that moment, but he chose like, oh, it's not my problem. And there's police around here; they'll get to it. And he decides to like, just like, oh, just go, by his way. And then he hears like, his uncle screams, and he runs back, and you see that the woman cradling Bahim's body, and she points to where the man took off, and then the people just chases them down. And unlike Peter, who for the most part never knew who, like, well, he see, like, we never, in the past growing up, I never knew who the freaking mugger's name was, but over time, it's kind of because it's run parallels to Batman and his kind of origin in a way. Because for a long time, when I was a kid, most of us never knew who's the name of that mugger who shot Bruce Wayne's parents. But it wasn't until like, I don't know, mid 2000s when like the name Joe Chill starts to like, okay, his name is Joe Chill, that was the mugger, and we all know who Joe Chill is. But you have to look up because I looked up the mugger's name who shot Uncle Ben, but it just never punctuated throughout any of the Spider-Man canon to such a degree, to where it's like they never brought him up. He's dead, long since dead. I mean, there's one comic run that I read where Peter, he was going to buy like Ben Reilly at the time, or it was Ben Reilly. I forget. It was, not too long after the whole Clone Saga, the original Clone Saga stuff happened, and he was dealing with like Mysterio in this adventure, and he was working in his diner during the snowstorm, and he was starting a relationship with a woman who happened to be the daughter of the mugger who killed his uncle. That was a whole thing. I'm surprised that's never even brought up like that anymore. But anyway, he chases these crooks down, beats them up, but he holds himself back from killing them because he knows it's not what his uncle wanted, and it's not in him. So now he decides to dedicate his life to not to making sure he like fulfilled the life lessons of his uncle. With great talent must comes great responsibility. So yeah, so now he has another death, and this, like I said, is not too long after the I guess the event where his parents died in his village. So now he lost his uncle. Now the only person he has left with is his aunt. So now you got this universe's Flash, still called Flash, thank God, and gives him a hard time. I understand he's a kid, but it's like on some. I had bullies in school that will never, go so far as pick on a person who lost their relative. That's just like a shit thing to do. But of course, Pivotar ain't having none of it, and he throws this kid right out of the classroom with his strength, nearly like really like he's not hurt to a serious degree, but he could have easily hurt him with his super strength. And of course, Flash gets detention because he did provoke the fight. But the coach, it's almost like a freaking movie. Like, one hell of an arm, Pabakar. You're taking Flash's place and joining our cricket team. And remind you, this is India, because like football and cricket is the kind of like a sport that's like permeate the Eastern world. So he's doing his super heroics, and by the way, he doesn't have like web shooters. He actually have organic webbing. So in many universes, there are just like my comic book review of Marvel's Silk that I did last week, which by the way you should definitely check out my Marvel Silk review that I did with a 5-issue run that written by Emily Kim of Cindy Moon that I did last week. Check that out because that was like a fun read. And especially if you're a Korean descent, you love Cindy Moon because she is like a phenomenal character. She has organic webbing too, so you think it's like a goof because when I watched the first Spider-Man movie when I was young, it didn't jive too well with me and a lot of people. It's like, God, it's like organic webbing. It's like he's a smart guy. He couldn't invent, and like it's like I think it's kind of knock on Sam Raimi and the writers. It's like why, you couldn't just give him like he's smart. He could easily invent because they didn't lean too hard into Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's scientific knowledge the way the other two later on had that time to shine with that part of their character. I guess it's kind of cutting corners. It's like, okay, just give him organic webbing. But it's not too unrealistic. Then multiple universes, there are plenty of Spider-Man variants that has organic webbing. It still makes me laugh to this day, where all three Spider-Man are together in Spider-Man No Way Home. One of my favorite, like the favorite movie of mine. Period. Full stop. To this day, until my dying day. It made me laugh when Tobey Maguire shows off his organic webbing, and the other two are just stunned, like, "Oh my God, they just came out of you! Why? Like, you can't do that." And we just eventually gotten used to Tobey Maguire's having organic webbing, and that's his thing. There's many other Spider people who has that thing, so that just leave it. So we get overall, I guess the story from the demons about what happened to them and why they were sealed away, and they tell them to go after Pivotar, which I'm kind of stunned, where they just like automatically, okay, his identity, go right after him. And that's what he does. He orders this universe's Doc Ock, who seems like more of like a, I don't know, got like some kind of a DID or something, but somehow he just changed into a demonic Dr. Octopus kind of thing. It's almost like one of those Hindu deities with multiple arms. I guess you can say it's like, I think it was Krishna. I don't know if it's like the exact one-to-one, but it just gives me a vibe to some kind of deity or some mythological variant of Doc Ock, because you got some cybernetics, but I think it's like the ends of the arm seems more energy based. It's hard to say because I like to say it's just energy based, but his whole facial feature seems demonic in nature. So I'm not sure. They never explain how. At least it would be nice to have like a panel at the very least, or just one page dedicated to like a quick note of like how he looks like this. Obviously, it got something to do with Oberoi, who you know fixed up his key scientist to look like this, because he's only doing this in order for Oberoi to make him human again. So Doc Ock goes after during the cricket match, and goes after Pivotar. So Pivotar runs to the school to grab his Spider-Man gear, and fights Doc Ock. And of course, like it's like the battle is pretty freaking epic. And by the way, speaking of the art design, I love the colors in here. It's like there's obviously some like the artists are from India, and Kang, just the way he, the way it looks, not only the details, but it's just like the way the colors look. It's like a lot of like reds, oranges, very sunsetty, sunrisey kind of colors. The way it's like blend together, like it's hard to describe, but it's just like when you're doing these different universes, yes, it's kind of ideal to make it, it's kind of like in Spider-Verse, the first Spider-Verse movie. It's like you get, as you watch my spoiler review of that movie, check it out on my channel as well. I point out how like you get a brief glimpse into each of the other Spider-Folk and their world, because you already get to tell like how they look individually, because their world looks exactly like that. So it's different kind of frequencies and like is like, or even Doctor Strange too. You get to see very briefly in some cases other worlds that seem kind of foreign, and it's just just by slight differences here and there. And when you're drawing a different world, you gotta be vastly different in some cases, not just the way great, my chair is sinking. But you get it. It's like you gotta make it seem so drastically different in some cases, to the point where it's almost foreign. So yeah, I love looking at every panel of this. I of this comic. I love it. So Doc Ock slinks away as Pivotar is saving people from a wall collapsing on them. So it's very, very good. But Goblin decides to take matters in his own hands and kidnaps not only Maya, but also Mary Jane, or Mara Jade, MJ. And you see that, as like I said, you can't help but think of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, where you give that sadistic choice. You are who we choose to be. Now choose. So it is very funny. I just can't help but think about it. But but unlike Tobey Maguire, who in just an awesome fashion managed to catch both his Aunt May and MJ, Pivotar only managed to catch, because he's not that skilled yet. It's very, very early in his Spider-Man career. He manages to catch his Aunt Maya, but as he's trying to web and catch MJ, he misses. But luckily, Doc Ock comes in, saves her because after you know you know Goblin just says like he's planning on releasing these demons into the world, and it's like then what's going to happen to the humanity? And then if you release these beasts, and pretty much like fuck them. So he turns against Norman and tries to fight him. He ends up dying trying to fight Goblin. He just does like a Hadouken at him and burns Doc Ock alive. So Pupitar steps in, decides to take the fight to him, and then this is like a kind of almost set up like a whole multiple. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, because it doesn't seem like they made more Spider-Man India comics. They should, because they clearly trying to set something up, because you get like this version of the symbiote which somehow is tied to the amulet that Goblin punches Peter with, and of course someone that gets to him and tries to corrupt him, but the words of Uncle Bahim resonate so well, where it's like, no, I know who I am, like I know what I'm supposed to do, and so he rejects this symbiote, and pretty much exercise it from him, and through a feat of strength punches that I guess like the amulets hold off of Oberoi, and chucks that thing I guess into the sea, and leads to some kind of explosion or something. And that part is like it's okay, like why punching him release the hold that this amulet had on him. I guess that's, you can explain that away, but like, why does it explode? Unless you see him like crumble it to pieces or tied to something that will explode, something or other, but it explodes. The seal is intact. The demons didn't get released, and of course, in the midst of all this, MJ knows. He reveals himself to MJ. He sounded like, I really wanted to tell you this. I was going to tell you this, but I was planning everything later. Can you get my aunt to safety? Because she would pretty much pass out at this point. And so now that the day is saved, Pupitar goes back to his aunt. Seemingly everything all is well. But then he leaves like a ambiguous ending where you see in the water the symbiote still like is lurking. But yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, I wish there was some explanations here and there for certain things, because it seemed like they kind of skip over it. I know it's they making it kind of like a tight. I'm not sure, like, because this comic book came out like a long time ago, so I'm not sure how much. Because if it's something like Batman Damned, to where it's like they had maybe like a couple of months to work on each comic, despite it being like just a 4-issue thing, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, it's cool to have it truncated, short and neat, but you run a risk of leaving like certain, I want to say plot holes, but it's like questionable stuff that seems like, okay, it's kind of closer to no, but irregardless, yeah, I still very much like this. It was like a very fun read, nice world to just visit. I really would like to read more Spider-Man India. Really fun, highly recommend it if you want to read something like a one-off story. It's a very quick one-day read. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes, because I'll be covering in 2 separate videos, back to back, season 1 and season 2 of Spider-Man the Animated Series in 1994. So, and then after that, I got a couple of movies that I'll be doing reviews on. So, I will see you guys in a little